Right. So I think we're 3 minutes past 3. I think they're still rounding up people in the garden, pushing them into the meeting room. The weather is probably too good today to sit inside. Everybody wants to be in the garden, but let's get started. So as you see, I'm not on the stage since this is going to be live, so I want to be behind my laptop so I can actually be clicking. So I'll be standing here. My name is Mark Mulder. I'm here with WEBCON, and for this session, I want to show you the tool we have for rapid prototyping. So maybe before I go into the details here, some idea. Could we have a raise of hands who already knows or maybe even works with WEBCON? Do you have any idea who we are, what we do? Okay. So it might be a good idea to give you all a little bit of context on where we're from, what we do as a company, right? So we are a low-code platform for process automation. So we help clients to automate and digitize business processes. So this can be companies that have processes still on paper, manual. It could be processes that are in Excel files that are not centrally organized, so it's difficult to report on those processes. So we provide one platform where you can build applications. I like to compare us with sort of Lego for building applications, right? So you don't need developers and very technical people to build them. It's like Lego, so it's very easy to build those applications. It can also be processes that are surrounding your enterprise systems, right? So if you have an ERP, let's say SAP or Business Central, you have a set of core functionality in the ERP. If you would like to do something custom, tailor-made for your company, this is going to be very time-consuming, very expensive. So, right, you want to keep the ERP close to the standard. So you can use a tool like WEBCON to do custom-made processes very cheap, very quickly, very easily to expand on what you have in those core enterprise systems, right? The ERP, PLM, CRM systems that you're using. So that is sort of what we do. We are process people. We help our clients digitize those processes so they become auditable, traceable, transparent. And what I want to focus on today is a tool we have for connecting business and IT. So just so I have a feeling, who in here is on the business side? Could we have some hands? Just so I have a feeling who is in like finance, HR, logistics, sales, any business department that is not IT. So very few I see. So the rest of you is all in IT? Pretty much, okay. And then there's going to be a bunch of people that are in between IT and the business, right? So the business analyst from IT that is actually responsible for their business client, taking input from the business user that has a need or a problem and trying to deliver a solution. So that's exactly what we're going to be focusing on today. So the prototyping session is a replacement for sort of traditional requirements gathering where a business user needs something. And now they need to explain IT what they need. So they start with a blank piece of paper. I need this type of application. Maybe they need some data, so they explain it in Excel. Maybe they draw something on a whiteboard, or they use Visio. And they give this all to IT. And then they wait for a couple of months. And then they get something back from IT. And in a lot of cases, it's not exactly what they expected. So it has to go back to IT for some more rounds of improvement. It's quite a tricky process, right, to understand each other. So the approach we have here is much more visible, tangible, and you can get results really quickly. So what I want to do right now is build a prototype of an application live for you, and we can make this interactive. So I would gladly have input throughout the session. I'll be asking some questions. And I was actually thinking about a good process for this session. Of course, I do this demo for a lot of our clients, so I have some standard processes that I use frequently. We just had someone at our booth that mentioned that they tried building a process for visitor management in Power Platform. You're in the room, perfect. So if you have any suggestions during the sessions, shout out and let me know where we can take this. So I'm going to take your example, and I'm going to build your prototype. So I have some ideas, but feel free to add into the prototype. I want this to be an interactive session. Let's say I'm the business analyst, you're the business users that need some kind of application. So let's see what we can achieve in the 35, 40 minutes that we have left in this session. So I'm going to start by creating a new prototype. IT Congress Visitor Management, I'm going to call it. Description, IT Visitor Management Prototype. Let me put it in. So what I'm going to start with for our prototype, I'm sorry about the text quality. I was hoping for a little bit higher resolution. I hope it's readable. I will, of course, tell you what I'm doing. I see it's not the best. Maybe if I close this and give it a bit more room, let's see how it goes. So I'm going to start with designing a workflow. So I think that's already important. A lot of software starts with data models, right? So in here, remember, we're trying to facilitate a meeting between business and IT. And if the first question you ask to your business user is, what data model do you need? That's probably going to be the end of the discussion, because that's not how business users think. They don't imagine data models in their free time. They have business to do. So, right, we'd like to start with something that's a bit more tangible. So we're starting with the workflow. So, oh, that's definitely not going to be readable. So we have steps in our process. We have a start and a finish. I will delete the finish, so we're just left with our starting point. Our process has some phases. It has a start, it has an execution, and then at the very end, it's finished. So for visitor management, I'm just going to imagine a few steps we have in the process, what I would expect. Feel free to add anything into the process. First of all, we have a starting point, so we're probably registering that someone is going to visit our location. Let's say we add some complexity. Let's say we're a manufacturing company. So let's say we have we have an office section, and then we also have the manufacturing section, which is higher security, and different visitors are not allowed to just go anywhere. Just so we have some context of what we're trying to do here. So, and we can imagine this is a process where normally you just send the guy at the front desk an email. We're expecting Mr. Mulder next week, please let him in, and that's all you have there, right? So no reporting, no real traceability, no real structure in there. So we have a visitor registration. Let me spell it correctly. We can immediately provide a description for the end user. So once we get our application, we have some explanation of what the end user is supposed to be doing in this step. Register your visitor. I have a second explanation where I can leave information that is more complex and that is meant for IT. So if there is some specific behavior, technical happening within this step, I can just explain it to IT in free text. So this should be very simple. It's prototyping. We should achieve some results very quickly. So let's say I register a visitor. That's my starting point. Then I have some internal approval process. That this visit is okay. We can actually do a second one. So let's say we have something. This is the generic approval, I can imagine. We can do a second level of approval. So if this is a visitor that needs to go into the heart of the manufacturing facility, I want it to go to the manufacturing manager so they can also approve it. So let's add some logic here. We have our flow control component. So let's say, is this a visit to the manufacturing hall? So here, of course, IT is going to need to add some business logic to actually make this work. So we want to, as the business user, give IT some input. How do we decide if that is needed? So this could be based on some priority that we define. So we have an additional step here, that is our manufacturing manager approval. All right. So that is the visit gets approved. We're waiting for the visit to actually happen, and I think the next thing that happens is the visitor actually shows up at the front desk, registers for their visit, right? So at this point, somebody needs to check them in, so this is going to be the person at the front desk. So we're going to do visitor check-in. And then, of course, the visit is ongoing, and once the visit is done, we're going to need to check out our visitor to take their badge back and then complete the visit. Visitor checkout. And then at the end, when we're all done, we have a step, visit completed. Maybe we also have a finish which is negative. So let's say they didn't show up for some reason, and then it ended, but the visit never really happened. No show. Why not? I'm just imagining things here, and as I said, if you have suggestions, feel free to shout out and... Okay, that's a good one. So what if it's not approved? So we have another state here. It's going to get declined. So we can go there during the process. So let's leave it at this, because I don't want to build the world's longest and most complex process. It's about the way of doing this. So let's determine how we can actually move through the process. So I have my registration that I submit. And then it is going to a specific person. So I can immediately define who this goes to. Maybe we have some connections between users or based on Active Directory, who is my current manager. You can have some business logic. We can determine who should this go to. So I can actually leave it with my superior. This is supposed to be my manager, so we can give it to the manager. So we would have a positive path here. Approve. Maybe let's give the manager the option to decline as well. Let me try not to draw a plate of spaghetti here. We have the possibility to decline it. Visit decline. Let's leave it up here so it doesn't mess up the workflow. So then we had our logic, right, where we check the priority if we need the manufacturing approval. So if that is a yes, we need it. It goes to the manufacturing manager for approval. If we don't need it, obviously we can go straight to the next step. So here we don't need the second layer of approval, we can move forward. And so we'll also give the manufacturing manager the possibility to approve. And We can keep adding to this, of course. So we're going to visualize this in a second. This is not final. We're prototyping, so we can change this the whole time. So I'm going to make some changes later on. So we have the visitor check in, and then we have the visitor check out. So let's say the visit started. So from the visitor check-in, we can have some automated path where the visit never actually happened. So this is probably not a path where somebody is going to actually manually push a button, but I mean, at the end of the day, when we know that the visitor didn't actually show up, we can set the workflow up so it moves to this path, the visit never happened. If we have a successful checkout, then there we go, visit completed. Checked out successfully. So let's see what we have until now. So we've spent a little bit of time here. We are 10 minutes into drawing, and we already have a process. Now, normally if you would do this in Visio, you would have the exact same thing, of course, right? You would have a drawing. If I would do this on a piece of paper or on a whiteboard, I would have the exact same thing. I would have a drawing. We have a little bit more than a drawing. So let me go to our prototype. What I can do here is I can actually run the prototype. If I do so, I get a live working idea of the application that we've just built. So you will see it's still very blank, since we didn't add any fields or anything into the forum that we're going to be working with. But we do have the full process. We can pull up the visual representation, and I can actually work with this. So I'm in the registration step right now. I have the submit path that we defined. So I can submit this. It is going to move forward. It is now in the execution. It is in the manager approval, as we defined. The manager has the option to approve this or to decline it. If we decline it, this is going to walk down. We see it's now declined, right? So just 10 minutes of input, and we already have a visible prototype that we can critique. Business user can tell us whether they like it, whether it has all the components they're looking for, or whether there's still something missing, which is for a business user much, much, much easier than starting with a blank piece of paper and trying to visualize all of this. So that is a really good starting point. And let's say, just staying with the workflow, let's say our manager, for example, the manufacturing manager said, I want to have the possibility, or actually we can do this in the regular manager approval. They want to have the possibility to send it back with a question. If something was not clear, or we need to have more information why this visit is happening, we can also move backwards in the process. Ask a question. So we can add something into the process. If we save it, it's going to be visible immediately. So this is the point where it's probably a good idea to think about what actual data do we have in our process. So what sort of information would we need here in our process? Again, it's super low-code, drag and drop, so it's very easy to work with. I have different data types. Is this even somewhat readable? Well, text fields, integers, people, drop-down list, checkboxes, anything you can need on a form is here. So I'm going to start with some people. I have the requester, probably, that's submitting the visitor. So, and for each field, I can provide additional information. So I can add a tooltip. This is going to be the requester. I can add some information about how this field should behave. So today the example we have is quite simple, right? But if there's some more advanced behavior, you can describe yourself as a business user, and the information here is going to be input for the IT team that is going to actually build the full-blown application, right? So all the business logic, integrations, data sources that need to be added into the application. So the comments here are going to be input for them on how to build this application, how should it work. I can also add some default values, which is going to be good here. I will let the current user be the requester. Maybe we'll show the requesting manager as well. So this is the direct manager. We can also pre-fill that with the current user superior. So then we have the visitor. So let's say I'm registering the visitor with an email address, and let's also have a text field with the visitor name. So I want to have the email address so I can send them a notification. All right, so let's say we have a text field with the purpose of the visit. And we wanted to have some sort of prioritization, right? Is this a high security visit? Do we need to go into the manufacturing facility or not? So I can add a simple data source here as well. I can use a drop-down choice field. Visitor priority, I will call it, just to keep it simple. And I can add a little data source, just so we have something on the form to work with. So of course, at this point, since we're prototyping, we don't gonna go into integrations with your ERP where you have all kinds of complicated data sources. This is supposed to be simple, so we can add just a simple data source with visit priorities. And let's say we have low, medium, and high priority. We're going to have some date, so we'll add a date. And actually, with the date field, we can also add a time selection, so we'll do the time selection as well. So this is going to be the visit start. And let's also give it a endpoint. Visit end. We'll also give that the time selection. We can save it. Does anybody have any ideas? What else should we add on the form? Anything, or do you think we're pretty much complete to have a look at it? If you have any ideas later on, we're going to be at the booth for the next 1.5 days, so we can build something on the spot if you have some ideas you would like to work out, no problem. I will save this. And again, with another not even 10 minutes of input, we can go back to our visitor management application, run our prototype, and right now we're starting to get something that actually feels like a real application. We have the requesters listed, we have tooltips available, we can fill out our visit details, visitor name, email addresses, the purpose of the visit. We have our data source visible, so if it's a high category visit, I can indicate this. But I'm not yet happy with what we have here, because I can send this to the next step. And it's fine. I've left it empty. I haven't selected anything, and it's been sent to the manager, which is of course not very realistic, right? We have a specific behavior here, so we can do some more fine-tuning. So what we have here is our field matrix. So what you can define here is basically you have all the data we've put on the form on the left, and then on the top we have all the steps of the process. And using these checkboxes, I can define if this field should already be visible, or maybe not yet, or not anymore, because it's not relevant here. Should it be mandatory or not? So let's define how actually the data behaves throughout our process. The requester and the manager, they were predefined values, right? We have a data source there, so we don't need them to be editable. The visitor name is definitely mandatory. I also absolutely need an email address. Actually, we can make these mandatory for the whole process. So I'm making these fields mandatory. You see, for all the process steps, they've now become mandatory. The visit purpose, yes, absolutely need one. I also absolutely need a priority. Actually, everything here should be mandatory, logically speaking. So let me just make it mandatory everywhere, so that makes sense. There we go. So also the requester, actually we can make this one read only for the whole duration of the process. So maybe actually for the manager approval, I don't think it's really relevant that the manager approves the date of the visit. Right, so the purpose is important, so maybe we can save him a little bit of space. Don't show the user any irrelevant information that they don't actually need, so maybe the manager doesn't really need to care what the date is, it's about the purpose that they're approving. So we can make the form a bit smaller and then simpler to understand. So we can leave that out. So let's have a quick look at our process. So if we go back into our prototype, we immediately see that those two fields are now read-only. If I try to send this forward without all my mandatory information, the platform immediately tells us that, wait a minute, we need some more information before we can actually make this happen. So if we fill out the process, we're going to set our priority to high. We can give this a date. So let's say the visit is happening next week, and it's going to be starting at, I don't know, let it start at 9. And then the visit can last till 10. We can submit this. It has now gone to the manager approval. We see that the manager doesn't have the visit dates, as we set those to non-visible. So you can imagine that right now, the idea we started with 20 minutes ago of a visitor approval application has actually become sort of a tangible thing that we can already see and envision, and we can give feedback and make it better over time. So that's of course exactly what we're going to do, because there's a lot of things happening underwater during the process. So we can indicate as a business user what is happening underwater, and we can do so using our actions. So we have a ton of actions. So this is like sending email notification, generating documents. So maybe the visitor badge that needs to be printed needs to go out. Maybe before the visitor actually arrives, we want to collect a digital signature from them. So they've signed off that they are actually the person that's going to be visiting. So we can add all those elements into our prototype. So let's say we have an email notification, and I want the email notification on this path. So this is going to be a notification to the manager. So I've added this right here. Let me try to make this a little bit larger. Yeah, so you see with this cogwheel that there is an action here. So this is the email notification that's going out. Of course, that notification needs to be configured, right? You need to set up a body for the email, who is it going to, what it's going to look like. That is going to be the job for IT later on. Right now, we're just prototyping. We don't want to waste the business user's time, so we want this to be quick and easy and simple. So right here, we need an email notification. You can explain what content should be in there, but that's it. We can have another, I don't know, let's say we send an email notification, or maybe let's make a digital signature for the actual visitor. Maybe one thing to mention, you can also make much more complex processes within WEBCON. This is a very simple example. You can actually connect workflows to each other. So if you have a very complex business process, it's going to be, right, not just one simple 5-step process, but it's going to be, I don't know, project management, where you have different teams doing different tasks throughout the process, and it's going to require much more complexity than what we have here. You can do this within WEBCON. You can connect those processes to each other, but not for today. I want to collect digital signatures. So maybe I'm going to create a document and send that out to the visitor. And I want to have that done when my visit is approved. So actually, when we arrive at this step, we've gone through the manager approval. We've potentially gone through the production manager approval. So when we arrive here, we know the visit is approved. So at the starting point here, we can say, send the visitor document out to be signed. Potentially we can have another decision here that if the visitor doesn't actually sign the document, right, then we can take another action, but let's try to keep it straightforward. We can also say we have actions for creating documents. So let's say actually we want to create a document. We're also going to do this during the visitor check-in. So here we're going to actually, we can print the visitor badge. Right? It doesn't have to be your process. Maybe you have badges that you're handing out. I see you have a question. Sorry, just shout out if you have a question. Okay, just quickly repeat the question so everybody gets it, right? So what if the manager is out of office? Are we going to be able to send it to the replacing person? And second of all, if the visitor's checked in, so maybe somebody needs to guide them through the plant, of course they need to have the right security certificates to also go into the manufacturing facility. So first of all, when somebody is out of office, WEBCON comes with a full substitutions model. So anybody, not just the manager, anybody in any process that gets a task assigned to them, if they've registered that they're not in the office, we have a substitute that is currently taking over for them. So automatically the task is going to get rerouted to the substitute. So, and this substitution, you can weave it into your process. So when I'm requesting a holiday, I immediately indicate who is going to be taking over for me, and then that person is going to be notified. You can integrate it. So if you have this not in a WEBCON process, but you have the out-of-office registration in another system, you can integrate it. So WEBCON obviously is, so processes don't happen within only WEBCON. We're always part of a bigger ecosystem. So I don't think I know any processes where you have no integrations with other systems. There's always some master data from the ERP that you need, some data coming from CRM. Once you finish the process, there is some other system that needs to be informed that the visit has actually happened. So you're going to have integrations everywhere. So also for substitutions, you can do this. And also, if you have processes for managing the certificates and the skills and qualifications that your personnel has, you're going to be able to connect that into your process, right? So if we have a step here for who can go with the visitor into the manufacturing hall, this can only be somebody that has the right certifications, right? So you can connect those processes to each other, whether those processes are in WEBCON or whether you have an external system where you have your staff and their skills and registration. So you can connect this as you please in a really straightforward way. So right now, with just a little bit of input, we actually have a process that we can see, we can work with it, we can build on top of it and criticize it. So once we've actually finished that process, right, when the prototype is complete and we go over some iterations, we ask the manager to have a look at it, take their input as well, improve the prototype, and we have the feeling that we're done here. So that is probably the moment when you need to go and actually get a budget so that IT can go and build it. So IT probably needs to have some document, right, to explain them what am I going to be building here, how much time am I going to need to build it. So you're probably going to need some sort of snapshot of this prototype. So we've added a function that allows you to very easily generate the documentation of this prototype. That's going to contain all the information we've added into the prototype, and that's going to be a good foundation for IT to actually give you some estimate on how much work is this going to take. Once you have the green light, you have a clear definition of what did we agree together, what was defined, and then you can actually go and build the application. So that is something that's quite important. We'll let that run for a second to actually generate the document, and I'll show it to you. What is, of course, another big advantage is since we're doing this in WEBCON and the application is actually going to be realized in WEBCON as well, we're not duplicating any work. So I'm fully aware that you have tools just for prototyping or for doing mock-ups or anything of that kind, right? So the problem is if you do a prototype in tool number 1 and then you go and build it in tool number 2, you're actually doing the work twice, right? So you're repeating yourself. If you do a mock-up in one technology and then build it in another technology, you're duplicating time. So I can actually take this prototype, publish it into dev, test, production, and everything we've defined here is already there. So we're not duplicating work, we're actually saving time. So in the meanwhile, we have our document. So let's have a look at what we have here. Oh, great, I should have started up Word before doing the presentation. We have a Word plugin. And there's a new version available of our Word plugin, which is now going to be downloaded and installed. So I'll leave this in the background and then come here for a second later. So that is one thing. So what is it? We can publish this, make it a actual application with another push of the button. So the button I have here is publish this to the Designer Studio. That is going to take our prototype, make it into a real productive application. I'm actually going to do that. We can have a look at it in a second. Yes, we can do that. We can leave the test documents. I'm going to publish the prototype. So we have an actual application. We can look at that in a second. And in the meanwhile, my Word plugin has finished updating, so we can come back to the document I generated. So what is very good here, and I spent a good couple of years working as a business analyst, so I know what it is to talk to the business, try to get their input and their requirements and try to translate them into actual solutions. One of the problems that I had to live with is that I had 5 different business departments, and they all gave me input in a completely different form. Right? Different layout, different document. One used Word, the other used Visio, and I had to sort of, realize what they actually needed and translate this into solutions. So this, of course, gives you very structured input as IT. So you know what is going to be where, which input do you expect. So we have the table of content, we have the process that we designed together, and we actually have an overview, step by step, of each individual form that we're going to go through with all the fields, how they behave, are they read-only, etc. So everything is right here, so you're not going to waste time writing the documentation. We'll generate this automatically. So one more thing, and I realize we're running out of time, so one more thing I wanted to show you. So like I said, I've published this now into production. I want to use the 2 minutes to show you something else here, so we can have a look at the productive application. It is exactly the prototype. I've just moved it into a productive environment. So believe me there, it's exactly the same thing. One thing I wanted to add here is we've been adding some AI functionalities to this tool. And I think looking at all the presentations, this is probably one of the few presentations where AI is not in the title, right? Everything, it has to be AI these days. I would like to show one little thing. So we can, instead of doing this whole prototyping thing manually, use AI to speed it up. So what we can do here is just ask AI to build the first version of the prototype for me. I need a visitor management application with 2 approval steps. It's for a manufacturing site. So what I'm asking it for is a visitor management application. It's for a manufacturing site. Please make it according to industry standards and give it a proper data set. So of course, if you feed it more details, the prototype is going to be better. I want to keep it short. So we're going to generate the prototype. And what this means for a business user is that if I don't really know what I need some solution, I don't know, a business trip settlement application or whatever I need, and I'm not able to really imagine what should it be like, just use this as a first starting point. AI will lay out a first idea of the prototype. Is it going to be perfect? Probably not. But you can then very easily look at the prototype, cut out what you don't need, add what you're missing, and again, as a starting point for the whole process of translating business ideas into IT solutions, it's going to speed up by a lot. So we get the full layout of what we got here. So this prototype has been built by AI, visitor, details entering, first level of approval. We have some logic here, second level of approval, and then the visit actually happened or did not happen. So this was 1 minute, and we have our workflow. What it also did is create the whole form. So everything we have here with visitor names, the company that's visiting, what type of visit, start date, end date, pretty much exactly what I added manually, and I did not rehearse this. I literally got the idea for this presentation about 20 minutes ago at the booth. So this is what 1 minute can do when you're prototyping with the help of AI. And like I said, what I don't like, I'll throw it out. What I'm missing, I'll add it. We have a prototype. If the business is happy with it, I can take this into a dev environment, add data sources and business logic, and you're up and running. So We are 1 minute over time, so I'm going to leave it at this. I hope this has given you inspiration of how you can use WEBCON to deliver applications very quickly and especially speed up and improve the relation between business and IT by actually giving them something tangible in a very, very short amount of time. I hope it's been useful and enjoyable for you. If you have questions, if you want to do another prototype, please come find me at the booth, and then I will happily have a look at it. Thank you very much.